Call to order a joint meeting of the Board of Commissioners and the Parks and Recreation Committee, February the 9th. Call to order. And if we stand, I will have the prayer. Precious Heavenly Father, thank you for a beautiful day. Thank you for the blessings you give us. Watch over, guide us, give us a good meeting, and give us a safe trip home. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Need approval of the agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
We're here. All in favor?
Aye.
Conflict of interest? We're reading that?
Does anyone have one?
Doesn't matter. Okay, before we get started any further, Wayne is under the weather, so you're stuck with me. All right. Or you give an introduction?
Well, yeah, we have Jesse Day here with the PTRC, Regional Planning Director, and we've been working on the comprehensive plan for Parks and Rec in Stokes County, named Active Stokes, and that's been going on for almost a year now, and we have the draft plan as it stands now. We've had surveys, community surveys. We've met with One Cove recently about some new developments there, and Jesse has this agenda for us today that's outlined by the time that we'll spend on each topic, which may speed up as we go along,
Yep.
so we're ready for the 6 o'clock meeting.
Yeah, that's
And
right.
we've
You
got
have a regular
various
meeting in a
maps
few
and
minutes.
Other input options for the various goals that will be discussed. So we'll turn it over to Jesse to.
Great, thanks, Tori. Yeah, and also with Sam Stoller is with us, a regional planner at Piedmont Triad Regional Council. 2 other staff that have worked on this are Alex Bennett, our grants analyst, and then Melinda Ford, who's done a lot of the mapping. So I just want to acknowledge the team effort there, and it's been really a pleasure to work with Tori and his team here at Stokes County, and then of course our steering committee members. Can we go around? Do we need to go around and do introductions real quick? That'd be helpful. So why don't we go around and do that? Kind of why you joined the advisory committee? It's been over a year since.
Committee here?
Not all the committee is here.
Okay.
Yeah. So we've got about a third of the committee, a third to a half of the committee that's here. So, but who you see here has been most active. I will say Randy. The other Randy has been very active and could not be here today. So, do you want to start off, Randy? Yep.
So Randy Honeycutt live in the Pond Hall area, and we got interested in this because of the activity that we saw in Forsyth with the park. So,
I'm Sid Wise. Our property's in Sandy Ridge. I'm one of the organizers of the Foothills Snorkel Trail, so I'm obviously interested in recreation and tourism development in the county.
I'm Catherine Converse and have been tasked with planning and implementing the Francisco Park, and I'm also a supporter of DARPA.
I'm Anna Wheeler. I'm with the Dan River Basin Association. I'm the Recreation and Stewardship Manager. And our mission is to protect and promote the Dan River Basin through recreation, education, and stewardship. And we are also the North Carolina State Parks partner for the Dan River State Trail, which runs through Stokes County.
Brad Chandler, Board of Commissioner, and live in the northwest part of the county, and thank goodness I have Catherine leading the way on all the volunteer projects, but I look forward to hearing the presentation.
I'm Rick Morris. I live in the middle of the county between here and Lawsonville.
Keith Wood, I live in the Northview area, not far from Pretty Store.
I'm Sonia Cox. I live in King.
You live in the county?
I don't. I'm Olivia Jessup, and I live in Surrey County. I'm sorry.
Fix that.
Jeff Sanborn, County Manager. I live over on the Stokes and Surrey line, kind of midway between Paladin and Westfield.
Again, my name is Jesse Day, Regional Planning Director. I've been working at the PTRC for about 20 years, so this is one of the more fun projects to work on. So thank you for the opportunity for PTRC to support this long-range visiting and for everybody's involvement so far. All of you have had a role in getting us to this point, so I'm really excited to have this discussion that we tried to set up, 2 months ago, and in early December we got waylaid by the weather, and then with a rezoning case last month, and so I'm definitely glad we didn't come here last month. I don't think that would have been a very productive afternoon. Really excited to jump into it today. So I've got, we presented in October on the survey results, right? So not going to spend a lot of time going through those because those were complete. That survey closed on September 30th. And so you have a copy at your place, or you should have a copy. That was not emailed out, but I've got a hard copy in front of there if we need to refer to that as we go through this. But the whole idea that we want to get into today is like, do these draft goals and objectives make sense? What is a no-go? What do we want to raise up and prioritize? As you know, with a comprehensive plan like this, there's definitely more than what we can do in a year. There's probably more than we can do in 10 years, right? And a matter of resources to get to it. And so how do we prioritize that into kind of 3 buckets of years, 0 to 3, 4 to 6, and then 7 to 10. And then also, who are the partners to make that a reality? I mean, that's how we've operated here, right, for the last 20 years in a partnership, right? So how can we support the partners that are working on Parks and Recreation right now, and what does that look like going forward? So that's what I hope to kind of meat of the discussion once we kind of go through and make sure we're have a good understanding of what the goals and objectives are. So we initially presented these probably back in September to the steering committee, have added to them, refined them over the past few months, and happy to present those to you today. So we'll jump into that. How did we come up with some of this? So really all that public involvement so far. I don't know if I can adjust that. So we had 3 steering committee meetings. We had 2 public meetings back in May of last year, and that's in the report there. Had focus groups. So we had a focus group in Walnut Cove. Chairman Wood was there. Vice Chairman Wood was attended there and had a great turnout. We also had a really good discussion in King as well. And then we also had a virtual meeting which had a few folks. The in-person discussions had a lot more participation. We held those mostly in October, November last year. So that would have been kind of around the time we gave that survey update. I mentioned the October update, and then also the survey where we had 415 respondents. So that's kind of how we developed this draft vision statement. Active Stokes will foster healthy living, strengthen community bonds, and inspire a love for the outdoors through a vibrant, accessible, and fun parks and recreation network for all ages. And so just something kind of a North Star as we think about what this could be, and happy to workshop that. That's the purpose of today's meeting. All this is draft, and we wanted to give you an update and have a chance for discussion between the steering committee members that guided this process, staff that worked on it, and you all as the elected officials for all of Stokes County. Ooh, that is, sorry that doesn't show up well. So this is the table of contents. I thought I had that in white. And so that's also, of course, in your packet in front of you. So we're going to focus on Chapter 4 today, but if there's anything we need to pull off for discussion or questions as you're thumbing through in terms of the introduction, the overview, demographics, the public involvement summary, or the existing conditions and standards. And so the Chapter 3 existing conditions and standards did both kind of assessment of what you have, but also, okay, what are the goals for, right now you have 140 acres of parks under county jurisdiction. What's the goal for the number of acres going forward that would be under that? And so what is not complete yet is the implementation schedule, the prioritization of our goals and objectives, and then the site-specific plans. And so there's a site-specific plan we've been working on for the Francisco Park. We're going to work on one for Maritock Park as sort of the crown jewel here in the county seat, and look at getting the facilities on a map that you could use to get a Part F grant or another grant from another source, the Parks and Recreation Trust Fund. And then Walnut Cove has approached us and asked us to include a site-specific plan for a new park that they're developing and include it in the comprehensive plan for the county so that they can get the points they need on a Part F grant. And so that's something, that kind of a development in the last couple of months that has come up since we had our, since the focus group meeting. That opportunity has come up for the town of Walnut Cove off of 65 and MLK Drive, a potential property they're looking at acquiring. And then the only thing we have right now for you is Appendix A, the survey results. So all that other stuff is in development or not in front of you today. Any questions before we jump into kind of going through the goals and objectives, or any other comments from the steering committee? Rolling here. All right, so just a fair warning, a lot of text here. Okay, so starting on page, I think it's 55, 56 is when you'll see some of these. So if it's easier to read from the paper report than the screen, these mirror that. And so, we had our
62, Jesse.
62.
That first one's on 62.
62, thank you. Yeah, must have renumbered. So, we've got our seven areas, right? So, first off, we'll talk a little bit about expanding staff capacity to support parks and recreation facilities and operations. So we've got some objectives there. Enhancing community well-being is our second goal. Our third goal is stimulating economic growth and tourism. So we have 3 of the 7 there, and then 4 on this board that we'll use later to prioritize improve accessibility and visibility of the county park system, and then upgrade and expand park infrastructure, expand and sustain outdoor recreational opportunities, and expand program and facility offerings, youth sports, that sort of thing. So these are all kind of grouped into those categories. Do you want me to read the entire text, or do you want to just say, is anything of concern here, give you a chance to read? I'm happy to do it either way. I don't have, like I said, I don't have a lot of visuals. I just have the policy recommendations there, which I think are really critical discussion, but I don't want to get into a point of just kind of reading the entire slide here.
Yeah, we read it already.
Okay.
We've all read them.
Yeah. So in this goal area, we've got 3 objectives. So establishing a Parks and Recreation Coordinator position to manage volunteer efforts. So one of the things that came up is in our focus group discussions was somebody that's got the time to understand volunteer resources and connect, because one of the things we found out in the focus groups, they've got extra volunteer capacity but don't know where to put it. So is that a role that the county Parks and Rec could help with allocating some of the existing volunteer resources? You have great assets in that, and so that would be a potential job duty of that person. Then be a central point of contact, and then overseeing operations in Martuck Park. And then I think one of these, the last one is worth kind of pointing out, a standard operating and maintenance procedures manual that everybody could have, whether you're volunteer or staff. That's kind of evens the playing field and understanding what's needed. And so there's a mishmash of kind of consistency, I think, at each of these parks in terms of the experience you get when you go there. So I think that last one would help with that. Now, another thing that's come up is the limited resources across the county. You've got 3 municipalities, 2 with King really being the only one of the real active parks and recreation system, Walnut Cove with the desire to do that. And so where can kind of aligning of those resources happen? So that's kind of a recommendation here on its own. One objective is kind of complete a more detailed study around staffing. But that's going to be, I've already broached the topic both with the mayor of Walnut Cove as well as the manager of King in terms of that's come up as a need, or not as a need, but as a kind of an interest in sharing resources. And so, but that's going to take some conversations between the county and those towns if and when this is adopted. But I think it could go a long way.
If King has hired a park director? I know, they used to have one, and then the person was let go, I guess.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and I don't know if they are planning to have like a sole Parks and Recreation director. I think I'm trying to think, the city engineer is kind of maintaining the parks. Tiffany, yeah, so it's good that, yeah, that director structure, I don't think is there now, as far as I understand. Great question. So this is an easy one. Parks Recreation Advisory Board would be helpful. So Rockingham County, good similar county in terms of structure, right? They don't operate a county recreation system. They have a few facilities, paddle accesses that they're maintaining. So that's building up. They've established Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. It gets you extra points on Part F grant application. And you've got interested citizens here that want to get involved, so that could be something to set up to help guide, if you're moving towards a staffing structure around Parks and Recreation, or just supporting the volunteer groups with Part F grants, that advisory board can help with points on that, and then also just better project development, program development, awareness. Okay, so moving into our kind of enhanced community well-being recommendations. A lot of great festivals right now, so continuing to support those. So nothing real surprising here, but I think that's really important to the community. And then expanding access to recreation facilities and programs for all age groups. Working with local organizations and other departments to deliver those activities. Now that takes time and whatnot. So again, that could fall under that volunteer coordinator position to help guide some of that, but this could be a part of that work plan, enhancing the community well-being and reaching that goal. Building a sense of community through inclusive family-friendly activities and events that foster social connections. Arts Council is a great example of that. And so continuing to support that, I think was important to place in this plan. And what resources do they need? So moving on to the economic growth and tourism, we've got 3 objectives in this section of the plan. Objective: increase visitation and tourism-related spending. So, what is the experience, and the visitor and spending patterns? I think you get some, countywide numbers that are good, but what are some other kind of feedback that we could get to see how those experiences are and what people are looking for. So I think there's existing data sets that we could kind of mine and figure out, but then also think about, surveys at each location of what folks are looking for, how their experiences it would be important. And then, the more you develop, the longer folks stay and the bigger economic impact you have. So that's something I know Tori's promoting all the time. So the next one is related to promoting Stokes County as an outdoor destination for enthusiasts by expanding river access and creating connected trail systems, including those that link to regional trails like the Mount Sea Trail. So thinking about both programming, Sid mentioned the Foothill Snorkel Trail. I think those are some great opportunities that are easy, low-cost solutions to get, just getting more folks into the county. But then also some hard costs like, restrooms. You'd be amazed at what some of those cost. Now, the issue at paddle access locations, you're probably in the floodplain, so you're looking at something that's movable, temporary, but, having those places to have a restroom. And then the other thing, I think there's a lot of great planning that's been done around trails, but a master plan of trails connecting parks and communities, regional trails, I think would go a long way. And so we'll have a network of some of that existing stuff in this comp plan, so that if we want to go ahead and, apply for a grant, that'll be there. But there may be key sections that need more feasibility analysis and/or design to move the projects along, and that's where a trails master plan could help get that a little bit finer grain, better cost estimates, that sort of thing, to create those connections. Create a clear brand and identity for Stokes County supported parks to enhance the overall system's appeal to tourists and residents. Again, kind of mixed. A lot of the signs are older. Just trying to kind of freshen that up, I think would be helpful. And your standard operating procedures manual could incorporate some of that, or it could be a standalone project. none of these are like quick solutions. So there's a comprehensive list of ideas, right? So I think, I'm looking forward to the discussion on how we prioritize these. And not to say there's not been a lot of great work done in this, in this area, but in terms of the county facilities, the volunteer groups have they're spending their budget early in the year, and they're, just doing the bare minimum. Some of the things that are deferred for years, they just can't tackle with what they're getting. And so, and everything's getting so much more expensive. So, so these are a couple recommendations for there. So moving on, am I going too fast or too slow?
No,
Okay,
fine.
all right. Goal 4, improve accessibility and visibility of the county park system. Again, volunteer organizations are stretched. I think, looking at, if you keeping that model, looking at expanding some of the resources that they have, I think could go a long way. And then kind of mapping out some of the volunteer hours, because you've got, like, Lions Park has some great, great energy and whatnot, but they're looking for project. I think a couple of folks from the Walnut Cove focus group that said they've got, that would love to help out more, but just don't know where to spend that time. And so I think that could help there. And then some key upgrades to ADA compliant things at playgrounds and restrooms. And so in chapter 3 in the report there, it kind of outlines some low hanging fruit on improvements, and then maybe some longer term improvements at each of those park sites that just from a facility audit you could easily do. Expand active and passive recreational opportunities. So passive recreational opportunities would be your anything that doesn't take organizing, like a team sport or something like that. It's not to say that it's not active. You're still getting the exercise if you're doing passive recreation, which I think we need to work on a different term for that. But both the passive and active recreational opportunities to serve that diverse interest. And so one of the things that came up, I forget if this was in our individual meetings or if this was in the focus group, it may have been in the focus group, is that, if one of the volunteer groups wanted to get a capital asset, they run into challenges because it's a county-owned facility, and so it's an extra barrier to them trying to fundraise. So looking at how to support those volunteer-led projects, and I'm sure there's some MOU kind of cleanup and some legal stuff that could really grease the skids for fundraising, and then both fundraising and then delivering the projects that so you don't run into the building inspector challenges, which I mean, obviously you're going to follow building code, but then also just the asset ownership, that sort of thing. So I think there's some MOU stuff that I think could go a long way if you're keeping this model of the volunteer groups doing the improving the capital projects. So you have the annual fundraising campaign. Okay, this was pretty straightforward. Signage and visibility at paddle access location, but also getting to those locations. I think there's really good signage at each individual paddle access location, but just making sure there's no gaps in there. Maybe adding some of that new brand for the paddle access locations. You've got the Dan River State Trail there. I think there's some opportunities to partner going forward. And all this is not to say that it has to fall on the county itself. I just think these are some priorities that county should play a role in and maybe lead some, have others lead those. And this could be one of those where some partner organizations could help with that. Okay, so goal area 5, upgrade and expand park infrastructure. So this is where I think there's a lot of capital costs here, but there's a lot of deferred maintenance needs. I mean, if you look at the Pinnacle Park, there's a lot of deferred maintenance there, and you've got a real active group there that's excited about pickleball. I think that could be a real win-win, partnering with them. You've got, the Francisco Park developing a lot of great fundraising that's happened already and local support. And then you've got the Walnut Cove opportunity. I think those are going to be the harder questions and the real, capital intensive, because as you know, there's no 100% grant funding out there. It's just, it's going to take match. Parks and Recreation Trust Fund is 50% match. The Recreational Trails Program, I think, is 25% match, and typically for trail projects. But then you have land and water conservation grants, some other opportunities there. But if you've got this vision of where you want to go in 10 years, that could help with some of the fundraising. I think it's much easier when folks know where you're going to ask them for support. And then again, you have some of that low-hanging fruit on the facility audit in section 3.4 that I think are just some basic improvements that could go a long way. Yeah, so just this objective incorporating sustainable design elements, or just lower maintenance costs down the road. Thinking about that from the beginning. And so being intentional about design, I think it could help you out, as well as the increased flooding that we're seeing. So thinking about that too before we put in infrastructure in floodways, I think is just an important objective here, or piece of this objective as well. Again, more funding for routine maintenance and infrastructure, and then implement that through the standard operating procedures manual. Support the development of parks and recreational facilities in county municipalities, and so this is where one of the newer ones where we kind of folded in the Walnut Cove request, and so I think it's more of just not really a financial support, but including this in the comprehensive plan so they can get points on their Part F application. And then I think your feasibility study could feed into this in terms of kind of that potential partnership on staffing with municipalities if we chose to go that route. Okay. Last couple of goal areas here: expand and sustain outdoor recreational opportunities, riverfront areas, expanding access there, and maintaining safety information. I know that DARBA dealt with some challenging safety issues on different parts of the stretch of the Dan River, and trying to do some educational partnerships with Duke Energy, which is great. And so I think that's gone a long way. But one of the things that came up when we were talking about this foothill snorkel trail was just some existing policies with North Carolina Wildlife Resource Commission. So how can we address some policies there to allow the snorkel trail access at those locations, but also make sure that the safety of swimmers are also looked after. And so I think there's some opportunities there. I don't know if there's anything else to add on that from our Sid. Not to put you on the spot. Okay. Yeah. So I think you've got some great plans and already some developing trail systems. How can we look at continuing to expand that? Because if you think of building off of what already exists is hugely important. So this is kind of around supporting that, supporting some of the existing plans and existing trails on the ground. This I think we've talked about, to support maintenance, secure funding, implement improved maintenance practices. Okay, last section here, expand program and facility offerings. So we've got some information about the, doing more interpretive education programs like the Foothill Snorkel Trail concept. This is low cost, easier stuff, but it takes somebody focused on putting information together and getting the brochures out, the information on social media, the signs up. Now this came up. Granted, our survey was April 30th through September 30th, so people were thinking swimming and spray grounds. But this came up a lot in the survey, so we felt like we at least need to put this in as an opportunity for families in the county. But if we take the route of going to spray ground, it's definitely not as expensive as a community pool, but you're still going to need maintenance of that. So that's just something to keep in mind. Again, I think Martok Park could be a good place for it. You've got the river. but there will be added cost to that. Or is it some other location in the county? Yeah, support and expand youth sports and summer camp programs and offerings. I know that, private industry is really getting into the space a lot. I think that's one of the challenges. 20 years ago, Randy, the other Randy, that, was the former Parks and Recreation Director, talked a lot about the active youth sports that he was able to help out when he was the Parks and Rec Director and 20 plus years ago. But I think that's something to keep in mind for the folks that can't afford to do travel ball and things of that nature. Look at ways to explore offerings through your nonprofit partners or whatnot, through the summer months or in the spring and fall months or even through the winter. So where are some of those underutilized facilities where some of that could be offered and partner up with nonprofits? That is it. That was a quick run through on kind of what we've come up with, and wanted to just see if there's any initial reactions, like is there any particular goal or objective that you really liked, that you really made you feel uncomfortable? So maybe we start with that, and see if there's any initial responses to that. And then we've got some kind of a dot exercise where we can kind of go through each one and see how we might, roughly on a consensus vote where, if we're pulling some off, we won't discuss those, but if they're the ones that we feel are important, kind of think about where we might put those in terms of priority, short-term, mid-term, long-term. But back to the first question, anything that excited you about all those hundreds of words that I just threw at you?
When I read the report, I thought this is really well done and very thorough, and would be very useful, I think. So I congratulate you guys on getting that done. The next thought I had is this is really going to cost a lot of money, and so then we get charged with growing government and raising taxes. So I guess my first question would be, if you look at all of these goals, where would be the low-hanging fruit that we could get started with? And my definition of that would be low cost and implement quickly. So is there something out if you look through all the goals that kind of meet that?
Sorry, Rick.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just, looking at the assets you have some very interested volunteer groups, but they're kind of in different places depending on which park they're sitting. So how could you support those folks better? So that's one area where I think that it would be worth investing time. And so now that may be a position that is looking at setting up some communication systems between the volunteer groups, some kind of coordination on operations and procedures, putting those manuals together. So it is a person, but it's working with what we've got. There may be some key things later on where the county wants to take that big step into running a Parks and Recreation system. That's not going to happen next year, but it's something to work towards. So that's kind of an initial thought, is like, how do we support those groups that are already out there and bumping up their support so they feel like they're valued. So one of the challenges, I think, it's like, well, every time we need a capital improvement, we have to come in front of this board. Now, you've got a list of facility audit needs there that, I think there's some low-hanging fruit, and then there's some more expensive things like at Germantown Park. You got great use there. I would say of any of the county parks, other than Maritock, that one gets a lot of use. But the building itself is it's in shambles, right? So maybe some potential improvements there. That's I feel like I'm rambling, but but I think the first couple thoughts: how do we support those volunteer groups, and what are some of those kind of capital improvements where they don't have to come to the county commissioners meeting to get, you know, the support, because it's in this plan. It's sort of, it's part of their, you know, annual budget.
I guess one way would just be give them additional funding each year, or recurring funding.
Yeah, because if you look at like, you know, just, because I remember you asking at the October meeting about, you know, kind of the percentage of budget that's spent on Parks and Recreation. So you guys are ahead of Rockingham County, which is kind of a similar, you know, orange to orange, whereas the other comparison counties, I'm trying to think of what page that's on.
They're a lot more than us, the rest of them.
Yeah, on page 21.
We were the only one more than Rockingham. I mean, all the
Yeah,
rest
so you
of them
spend
more
like about
than us.
$250,000 a year. You've got Surrey County that's spending, what, $1.3 million a year. That's 1.28% of their budget, but that's $18 per person. You know, and even supporting those volunteer groups, I don't think, you know, wouldn't jump you up into, you know, much of a higher bracket, but anyway, yeah, I just wanted to kind of point that out, kind of comparison counties and what you spend on Parks and Recreation. But, you know, I think just, you know, in terms of recruiting companies and, you know, quality of life things, I think the investments in Parks and Recreation are, you know, the dollar you put in, you get more of that back. Different studies have shown that. So, yeah, I don't have any specific ones to quote, but, you know, devoting open space, trail building, that sort of thing, it does help the economy.
How do you factor in Hanging Rock being located here? Would that, I mean, theoretically reduce the amount we need to do since we
Yeah,
already?
absolutely. Yeah, I think
have that?
it provides that, but it's a different type of park. It's not your, you know, after work, go and, you know, unwind with the kids, or, you know, go for a walk with a spouse to do that. Yeah, it's an afternoon. So, you know, thinking about different types of parks and whatnot is important to think about. So.
How many times you been to Hanging Rock Lake?
Twice.
Can I make an observation about methodology? And this goes back, I think, to Rick's point about, you know, in the end, we're going to have to think about resource constraint, right? So when I look at the chart over there, thinking about things short-term, medium-term, long-term, but defined timelines, I don't think that's particularly helpful, particularly at this point. I think that we need to be thinking about what are the priorities. What's a high priority, what's a medium priority, and what's a lower priority.
Yeah.
And it kind of goes back, I
Well, let's-
made the comment about adopting a plan that has these capital expenditures built into it, so we don't have to go back to the board. And I'm not comfortable with that process or methodology, because I believe that our board, every year, when they're considering major capital investments across the board, they need to be considering these opportunities in the context of other competing demands, right? So I don't think we want to adopt a plan that says we're going to do all these things, park and recreation related, in the next 3 years, and then there's a block of stuff that we're going to do in the next, you know, period after that, and the next one after that, because we need to allow our board of commissioners to examine these opportunities for improvement in the context of all the other things that we need to get done.
Yeah, right.
I've got a comment. So a while back, we explored some opportunities, and I think I talked to Eddie at the Arts Council, and I've mentioned this to Tori, with the North Carolina legislature to get a grant to improve things at Moortalk Park. And basically all that needs is, we're waiting on the bridge to be finished. There was no use to plan how we can improve Moortalk Park until that bridge is completed. But there is a great possibility of getting a considerable amount of money to redo Moortalk Park. I'm talking like $1 million or so. So, but we have to have a plan in place for Moortalk Park, and what we would need there, like a new shelter, possibly a place to actually sell concessions if we wanted to figure out a way to make money there to put back into the Parks and Recreation system. Possibly it could be self-sustaining there if you hire a few kids to do that in the summer, create summer jobs for youth and sell concessions. That's been something that's been mentioned, as well as improving some of the walking trails, creating some new walking trails around through there. But I put that myself on the back burner because there was no use to pursue it until the bridge is complete.
Where's the source of $1 billion?
The source of the $1 million?
Yeah, I want to know where
It's
it
the North Carolina legislature.
Oh, okay, so direct appropriation. Yep.
As they have in many other places, for many other projects. Like our water project, for example, was funded, through grants. And so, that's on the table, but, this committee could be very, it could be very important to utilize this committee to come up with suggestions to improve Moortalk Park, to bring it to this board that we could then come up with something that we would want to send to the legislature to fund. And, you have to have a plan. They're not just going to give you $500,000 or $1 million to do something if we don't have a concrete plan. So that's already in the works, kind of been just put on the back burner while we're trying to get this bridge finished. But in my opinion, Moortalk Park would be paramount to this county to improve, because there's not really a group associated with Moortalk Park like there is some of these other parks that have very active groups like Francis Cove, for example, and Germington. So that being said, I think we need to focus a lot on Moortalk Park, because that's where I think the most utilized park. And we of course have our festival there, the Stoke Stomp and things like that, which if we could rework it with this money, it could make that festival even better, and better facilities and things down there for that festival, which would be great. But in the past, I feel like a lot of these groups have done their own fundraising, the group in Pinnacle talked about raising money for the pickleball courts, and we kind of gave them our blessing for that. And I don't know where they're at on that, but I know like they do pancake suppers or dinners or things at German.
I think they had to give a lot of the money to Haleen, victim, other Lions clubs.
Yeah.
Is what they're.
So I'm just saying there are fundraising opportunities at some of these other parks that have a good volunteer basis. Yeah. And that would be a way to fund things in addition to what the county's able to provide. Because I'm like Rick saying, I mean, I don't think we're where we can spend a whole lot more money right now on things.
I think that Parks and Recreation Trust Fund is a huge opportunity we should really look at pursuing, because the survey that we've done is good for 10 years. This comp plan will be good for 10 years. So it's not 2026, not 2027. You've got opportunities to pull from that, high priority lists for Part F, or talk to a legislator about what some of the bigger ticket items that maybe is a little bit more expensive than Part F, because they're capped at 500,000 requests. So if you've got a project that's more than $1 million, it's 500,000 from the state, 500,000 from local. It's going to have to find other sources.
And I'm not saying a grant that I've talked to some in the legislature about would not be, would be possibly somewhere where we would have to partner with them and come up with a matching grant. I don't know that part. We never got that far in the discussion.
But now we know where the bridge. I mean, they've got the as-built or as-built drawing, so we can figure that out.
But I can tell there's been a lot of work put into this, and I really do appreciate all that has been put into this, and the meetings that everyone's attended, and to put this work in. And because this is the kind of stuff we need to be able to get grants, and it's very important. So thank you for everybody that's had a part in this.
Appreciate the opportunity.
I wanted to mention too that at Moortop Park in 2010, we had a plan done for that park because there's about half of the property is underutilized, not even developed. But there were plans for disc golf courses or additional trails on that property. So that's something that goes into the new Moortop plan that would be included in this plan. And then Jesse, would you be able to explain, like, you know, if you had a $500,000 Ardent grant and the county needed to match $500,000, how the other organizations that you come in to put that match together, or volunteer hours, or?
Yeah, so Part F is cash only. So they would require cash or land. So we missed an opportunity with Francisco Park because the clock's kind of expired on that. But say today there's a new Francisco Park, or the parcel next to Francisco Park's been willing to be donated. You can get that counted as the value of that land is matched. So that's a huge opportunity for or Walnut Cove's probably looking at that, although I think they're looking at kind of purchase versus a donation. But if say you've got a benevolent landowner that wants to support that or sell it at reduced value, you can count that value of land as match. But yeah, any local dollars from a volunteer group could match. But the county owns those parcels that those volunteer groups are managing, so you've got to be a partner in those applications to Part F. The county's got to be the applicant. It's only for local governments, and so that's where I think there's some real opportunity with this plan, and that's kind of why you see that structure around recreation standards and specific acres, because they want goals in there. You don't necessarily have to reach those per se, but we just need to have something in terms of where we want to be in 10 years for acres of park per person, and we can explore how we count Hanging Rock as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can we use as matching funds an MOU for use of private property? And the reason I'm asking this is with the Foothill Snorkel Trail, we've got several private landowners around the county that will grant us access to their property for stream walking and snorkeling.
If it's 15 years or more.
15 years or more.
Right? Or is it,
Okay.
I think that's the,
But does it make sense in a case
like a lease for 15 years or something like that.
It's like an MOU that says
Yep.
we can use it under these terms.
Yep, and as long as it's, not shorter than that, I think
And
you'd be
then
okay.
Would use of these private properties also be something that we include in this as we want to have guidelines for how the county partners with these people for it?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
And just, I think that's one of the reasons that the first goal was around that coordinator person,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
Because the things that we're talking about, this is kind of key. You've got to have a single point. There's fragmented things around, so how do we synthesize that?
Absolutely.
That seems to be one of the main reasons. How do you develop a priority list, Jeff? This person becomes that. There's a grant needs to be worked.
Yeah.
Becomes really important. So it's not the lowest hanging fruit. It costs, but that coordinator person.
But it's critical,
Becomes
yeah.
really important. And then the second half of infrastructure build and what that looks like, that's something down the road maybe. But if you were to say first off, you got to have somebody to pull this together.
But I think, just in terms of the hard infrastructure stuff, so you're right on, Randy. And so, but I think on the hard infrastructure stuff, you've got, stuff going on at Francisco Park. That's, we've got dollars that have been generated for match. That would be an easy win. Walnut Cove's basically, they're just asking to be in the plan. They're not asking for any financial support yet. Not that I'm aware of. They may come to you later, but yeah. So I think that's a good point. It's someone who can kind of go to work every day and kind of focus on this, that could help you move things along. And this could be their work plan, right? I mean, this comp plan could be the work plan for that person. Tori's stretched. He's very hard to get a hold of because he's always running around from. You're not hard to get a hold of. You're always responsive, but it's always on the go. So having some support on that, I think, would be good.
And we have the Arts Council's model. I think that's how it started. So we have a model of that Eddie kind of being, and look at how successful that has become. I think it's a good starting point. Yeah.
Brett?
Better question. So, you know, with the big beautiful bill that, you know, was recently passed, is there like a clearinghouse of somebody at the state level, or even if it's I guess maybe a larger county than us that has the manpower or the expertise to look and see? But from what I understand, that there's pass-through money for rural medical, but it's not the funds are not designed to build a hospital or to build a clinic, but there's these funds that, as long as you can connect it to rural health. So my thing is, you know, to increase whether it be mental, physical. I mean, I think it would qualify for like parks, you know, the walking trails or pickleball courts, and I mean, but I can't find where the money is hit. I mean, I just don't know I don't have the time campaign season right now. So, but it's, and I don't know how, you know, I don't know who would
Just
have
rural
that
medical care
expertise, but
Yeah, we'll investigate that. Yeah.
but there's money out there.
Okay. Yeah, great.
I guess my next question would be, given all the work that's been done on this, we're getting ready to do a budget cycle, so what we probably need, not right now, but figure out what we need to focus on for this upcoming budget cycle if we're going to do anything related to this.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Well,
Jeff will be doing that anyway, I think.
But next Monday.
I think y'all have done a great job, great plan, and y'all gonna shoot me when I make this next statement. I think each park needs a 5-year strategic plan. 'Cause, for example, is the picnic shelter gonna be standing next year in Germantown or at the Lions Club Park? The last time I looked at the Lions Club Park, that shelter was on its last leg. So something's got to be done now. It's going to cost the county even more money when it collapses or falls. So we need a priority list. We need to know what we're up against money-wise, just to keep them maintenance. Then we start adding the other stuff in the future. Is that totally crazy or impossible to do?
Sustain. What's it cost to sustain?
Right.
We can do some, you know, conceptual
Pinnacle
costs
Lions Club
for like a
Park
new
is in a
picnic
horrible
shelter.
shape.
So if we're looking at that, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Yeah, I was just gonna say, we could do some conceptual costs for some of from the audit, but it's not gonna be, you know, engineer sealed, you know, it may vary from actual costs of it.
You're
So that's
talking
one
about
thing.
throwing money at something and we don't know where we're going to throw it.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of the idea is to have some, you know, some general costs attached to these major facilities, but they're gonna be ranges, right? I mean, they're gonna be, you know, 200,000 to 300,000. So it's not gonna be, you know, it's.
Order of magnitude.
Yep.
One
Right,
thing we've
yeah.
done several times over the years is adjust the amount of recurring revenue, of revenue that we give each park to just do basic mowing and all maintenance and that sort of thing. So I suppose we could look at that and see if that number's where it should be or what it
It's
should
not.
be.
Right.
I know it's probably not, but then at least that'd be a step in the right direction.
Now, the other thing I just will recognize, I mean, there's definitely something like Germantown and East Walnut Park where you've got aging folks that are doing like two people doing 90% of the work too. I think that's the other thing. It's not necessarily something you guys can solve, but just something that's there. That's a challenge for some of these community parks. So,
Well, they need some younger blood, and there's some interested younger folks who were interested in helping with the East One Code part that I saw on Facebook recently, but they don't know who to get in touch with. But,
That's good,
coordinator or
yeah.
somebody to-
Right.
Or a place on an online resource.
The other thing we have to do is make sure we treat all the parks equally. We prioritize things and whatever. And not, I don't know exactly how you do that, but if we give this to one, then the other one didn't get it, and then blah, blah, blah. We gotta have a,
yeah, I think having it all in one document should help with that.
Yeah.
You know, so that you can and then you can kind of track it as well. But yeah, I mean, that's a great point with a strategic plan for each of these facilities. So hopefully the audit will help towards that a little bit.
Keith, a little clarified question for you. So when you talk about the 5 year, is that you thinking like this crew here come up with that, or is that something the coordinator? This group.
That's a good question. Maybe y'all can start the wheels rolling.
Or is
Park
it-
Advisory Committee.
Or does the Park Advisory Committee do that with feedback from the volunteers that are managing those
Yes.
individual parks?
Yes. The users.
Has anybody, have you had a chance maybe to go out and maybe try to partner with Veland? Because I know that I've been out there, once a year for the past 3 years, and they're very active. I mean, they're very active in the community, and I'm just wondering if they may be a good source, especially for that Pine Hall area.
Well, they got a little walking park there that they, for the most part, let the community come in, as long as they didn't have insurance. We would just use it for walking.
I think we should start a campaign with corporation to adopt a park. We just want their money and let them stick a sign up.
I agree.
Well, you know, Drew Nations, BLS did mention to us that there's a very big interest for his perspective and his part to look at developing some data, when the data center and all gets going, to look at developing some walking trails, biking trails and things, and even building a playground in the Walnut Cove area. So they're very much interested in doing that and being a good community partner. So, you know, we don't know like who exactly is going to be in the data center yet, but I'm just saying they're very interested in helping out, offsetting some of the other things that people are concerned about.
Would that be something that's developed by Drew Nation and his company, or would it be by whoever subsequently operates the data centers?
I think
Both of them.
Yeah, I think in conjunction with
I'm
each
greedy.
other. Yeah.
But a lot of, so I'm working with Google in Caldwell County now, and what they're doing, Google is taking the lead on the investment of grants into the county.
Yeah.
Because it's their name, they've got the funding for it. So sometimes it's whoever
Right.
decides. They're the ones that have the DDP meetings for that.
Exactly. Yeah.
And plus it helps with goodwill.
Yep.
Realize that.
Thank you. That's what I was trying to say. Thank you. Just keeping that in the back of your mind.
Something, they didn't tell me not to tell it. Tori, you know what's going on at Hanging Rock?
The construction of the campground?
Yes.
Yeah,
You know what they have proposed to do, the state?
I don't think so.
Middle of July, the campground at Hanging Rock's gonna shut
Oh,
down.
I knew that, yeah.
And that's gonna be one more pain in the butt for this county. For 16 months, am I quoting that right? They're totally rebuilding the showers and bathrooms and the campsites. I don't know why they can't do one at a time.
It's an economic opportunity for the campground operators.
Well, we have a lot of campgrounds and glamping sites that have popped up, and that's something that the TDA will focus on, being able to parse people out to our vacation rentals. And
I'm just gonna tell you, when tents start popping up at Watauga.
So I don't think we have time to go through full like prioritization list, but I want to revisit the question of like, is there anything that you feel really uncomfortable about on here? But what we'll probably do, I think Jeff's point was really good, is switch these from like so you're not committing to a specific time frame, but just do like high priority, medium priority and low priority here. We can do some thinking as staff, but if you don't mind coming up and just kind of, while we wrap this up, and think through that, and then add any partners or other thoughts, and we can kind of do a little bit of open house style before we wrap up. Before we break up, though, I want to make sure there's not any other comments from steering committee members or commissioners, and I'm sorry I turned my back on you. I was trying to capture a note on the
You're fine. You're
board where
good.
you're talking about the trails and the data.
Yeah, you're fine.
So I thought maybe just kind of get up there and then just see if there's any initial like, oh my gosh, we can't do this objective. And then that'll give Sam and I and Tori some idea of like where the higher priority and lower priority.
I just want to say thank y'all for all the time y'all putting into this.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
Yeah, and thank you to the steering committee members. We appreciate it. These are the rock stars that have been working through it, and the other Randy too. The Randys have been great. So,
Is there any project that is, large scale or expensive that we could turn a profit off on?
I
And
think it's.
obviously, it'd be hard to charge admission for, just the open
I think you're going to
parks and stuff.
offset the cost. I mean, the concession. You're going to offset the cost of building a concession stand at Martech Park. I don't. I think in Parks and Recreation, you're not. It's going to be very hard to get a full return on dollar for dollar return.
Yeah, I'm just
It's
thinking,
some of
'cause
the-
I know some parks, like if they have a lake and, they'll rent you a paddle boat or.
Yeah, probably if you're thinking you want to think big, and probably King would need to be a partner, would be something with team sports. I mean, that would probably be where you could really with those travel sport balls. But some of the passive outdoor recreation opportunities, you're gonna get that return from folks staying longer, staying at an Airbnb at Commissioner Morris's Airbnb maybe, and spending dollars at restaurants and eating locally, So that, sorry, I didn't mean that. I don't know. Is that well known that?
Yeah, everybody.
Okay.
Everybody's renting it right
Thanking you
now.
for the
Once the campground's out, look at you.
So I think if
Yeah,
you
they get
enter
real busy, huh?
into that, I think that may be. I think there's a very few of these kind of ideas where you're gonna get a specific like fee return on investment that could cover the costs.
If you can draw entrepreneurship around it, it generates revenue in restaurants.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, and what are some thoughts on how to monetize, like renting shelters? I mean, we can charge a fee at Moritage, but what do you do about the other community groups?
Right, and so and if you approach it that way in terms of offsetting some of the expenses, I think that just being more coordinated on that, you'd be able to capture some of that revenue. So, but it's not going to pay for the $40,000 picnic shelter. It's going to offset some of the operating costs year to year. So, so yeah, the operation side would help offset some of those costs, and so we can. And I think that coordinator position could help set up some of those policies, right? And it's like, hey, here's the system when you get a call that you want to utilize East Walnut Cove Picnic Shelter, or this is the fee, and it could vary by location depending on how that structure's set up. So.
That coordinator position be part-time?
Could be.
Part-time
I
position?
think there's
Depends.
there may be some interest of sharing the cost with the city of King and town of Walnut Cove or something.
Right,
And
yeah.
To be able to make it full-time.
Yeah, I think that would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
Yeah.
Do we count the shelter and the walking trails out at the Pine Hall Medical there as a park or separately?
I've mentioned it, but there is a map of the trails, and maybe that's something that needs to be added.
You want to add that, the Lake Break
Yeah.
Community
Yes,
Center?
that's what the nicest shelter we have in the county, probably, outdoor shelter.
Trail back in the back.
And then there's walking trails back in there around the lake.
And then they have the community center that you can rent out too for, but then,
Maintain.
County is, I think. I think they maintain the trail, and I don't think the other facilities had to have much maintenance yet.
Has there been a decision made on the Pine Hall School yet, or by the school board? 'Cause that may be an
No,
opportunity
nothing
for,
on
using a land donation. I don't know, it is sort of county owned right now. I'm not sure if you could count that for Part F, but if that's turned into a recreation facility, that's something to look at.
Those are sports fields, there's a wood tent, there's an old wood tent, shelter in the back.
Mhm. Where are we on the agenda?
That brings us to action, and it ain't no action, right? We done have the action.
Yeah, just,
I got an action. Do we?
You
Go
had
ahead.
a little time thing that you had up. You had a slide.
oh, yeah, so this is, yeah, more, priorities. We'll switch this, again, to Jeff's point, more high priority, medium, low, so that we're not attached to a specific time frame. But I think in the interest of time, we won't be able to go through all of these, but if there's anything of huge concern that feel like we need to pull out or change the language to better represent the goals and objectives, I think that's definitely on the table right now. That
So
would
if you
help
have any
us.
specific thoughts on certain things that you've heard that should be either a high priority or a low priority or medium priority, then it's a good opportunity to share that.
And we've got dots, we can throw them up there in the
Otherwise,
time we have, but
The group can go back and they can kind of formulate a recommendation on prioritization.
the discussion so far has been very helpful. I don't want to discount that. I just want to make sure that we're not missing anything.
Do we want to talk about a coordinator during the budget planning process?
I'll add it.
That's a priority.
Do y'all want to keep having these joint meetings when need be?
I think,
Or-
Jim, the idea is to maybe bring the final plan to the commissioners in April, I think. Jim.
Yeah, so ideally, that's the part I didn't mention is the time frame for Part F. So if we're moving forward with Part F, that would be the time to be, making an intentional move to adopt this plan, potentially, devoting some resources to it would have to be a capital project. So the coordinator position is not a Part F eligible expense. They're just all on capital expenses, right? So, but if there's any capital expenses to contribute to that Part F project, that would be at the April commissioners meeting if we're moving forward this year. Now, you could always do it next year as well, if those things fall into place. And I was trying to think what else. Yeah, and then having that plan, you've got a 10-year clock. But those are due May 1st, so that's the thing with Parks and Recreation Trust Fund grants. They're always due May 1st every year.
Jesse, according to Keith's comment, our objective 5.1 not address the under upgrade and expand, the ones that are the biggest problems, address priority needs. I think that's what we needed to.
Oh, yeah.
Keep doing that priority.
You guys good with that as a high priority, the objective 5.1?
What are our capital maintenance requirements? Yeah.
Yeah, so that's lower hanging fruit,
Wouldn't those be based, maybe the first look would be on safety, whether they're unsafe or not?
A good
Yeah,
point.
good thought, yeah.
Whichever's the least safe, we'll do first.
Now, Lions Park did update their shelter, got a new roof, shingles and all that, but I think they had
Right.
some issue, their organization had issues finding who to get the approval from on the county side. So that coordinator would help those those groups to know who to go to.
I think a lot of the problems have been, they don't know who to go to.
Yeah, the process.
I mean, do we factor in, or can we, or is it possible to factor in the parks that are used and the parks that aren't? I mean, I don't know if I'd
They
want to
are
put a lot of money
all
into a park that no one's going to come to. Well, and I don't know how we determine that, but
Yeah, in terms of survey responses, most of them are used, so, and also the meetings with all the volunteer groups. Now, Germantown's gonna be the highest use one in terms of survey responses, that's what I'm going off of.
Now, it's possible for me to find some information on the use from Placer AI, a service that we subscribe to.
Yeah, there we go, good, yeah.
Warthog's heavily used, I mean, you can't get in there on
Yeah.
Sunday.
especially during the summer on the weekends.
Yep.
It's not by us.
That's where we need to make our money.
Right. Yeah, so that full survey report has some of that feedback, but, yeah, that's
And I think that the Pinnacle Group may be the one that's not as used, because there's not many amenities in a falling apart tennis court, but
That's the other thing
want
about
to
is
put the
condition of what's
pickleball.
there.
Pickleball.
I'll be driving some of that, yeah.
I think if you were to have those outdoor pickleball courts, they could full all the time, because the pickleball court in King is full, the YMCA is full.
It's still booming.
Jesse, do we need to consider, you mentioned Part F and matching funds, does that need to be considered as a priority? If matching funds are needed for any application going forward this year, does that need to be something that's kind of at a high level of?
Right, yeah, I mean, especially for budget season, that may be the other thing to think about, is like, you know, how are we gonna support, either, you know, I don't know how you're gonna cycle it, you know, the Francisco Park this year, and then maybe Martok next year. I think Martok's got more to
Realistically,
design.
major expenses are probably, we're probably thinking about starting the cycle next year.
Mhm.
Since
Yeah.
we're already in budget development now.
So I think we've got, I'm trying to think, is that in terms of kind of prioritizing one of these existing objectives, or do we need to update something? I think we've got, I think that's objective 5.1, development, renovation, and enhancements at existing parks. But if there's another location.
Now, I guess my question earlier too, with part of is, so a group, Francisco Park, they want to apply for maybe $75,000, and then they have a capital campaign and they raise $20,000, that goes into that money that could be the match, right?
Absolutely, yeah, it does not have to come from the county. The county has to be the applicant, but the match doesn't necessarily have to come from the county.
Yeah, we are planning a capital campaign now, but I suspect that altogether, we are gonna need, probably at least 75 range from the county. And our communities will raise an equivalent amount that can then be used to match, the two together would be used to match for Part F.
Is it possible to get on the United Way fund, where you can check, like when you contribute to the United Way, they got different types of
places.
programs that, you
Pick the one
that
you
you
want.
can check. I wonder if there was a way if we could,
Well, in Stokes County, it's Stokes United, Sabrina Gatewood, I don't know if she's ever been here to present it or anything, but she's been interested in trying to get Stokes United paycheck donations from employees, so I don't know if that's, but Stokes United is the United Fund equivalent for Stokes
yeah,
County.
just anything that, where we
It's
could
all one
pull,
pod, don't it?
pull a number of people together, even small.
Give people away.
Yeah.
Rick asked early on if there's some low-hanging fruit. Do we have a category here for how to identify that and take action on it?
I think the routine maintenance is, increasing funding for the existing volunteer groups, I think is huge. I mean, I feel like I'm repeating myself there. I think the other thing is just supporting some of the, the program, and there's other stuff on here that's more of like, not really hard capital cost, but, supporting with some printing supplies, that sort of thing, and some signage around the county. So, in terms of specific ones, let's see. Yeah, I think the ADA, I've heard that, right? The ADA accessible safety as a priority, so I'm gonna put a check mark there. But to your point, what else is that here?
In terms of signage, I think there's a potential for better signage, especially if River Access and parks from assistance with funding from TDA, because that's sort of a focus of theirs.
Where's that, which number is that? Let me know. There's a signage, I know we've got increased public access to riverfront areas.
Objective 3.3 is the clear brand identity and
That one? Is that
overall
what we should
systems appeal.
you do a high priority for that one? I know we're running short on time.
Yeah, we gotta speed it up.
Okay,
We gotta
yeah.
crank it up at 6.
Okay. When do you want to wrap? Do you want to wrap at 10 out?
Yeah.
3 minutes?
However long it takes you to get out of here.
I think you can.
No sugarcoat.
But thanks for all you do.
You can add 4.3 to the high priority, I think, because we're currently working together with Stokes on some river access signage
Okay.
that's in the works right now. So.
Good. Okay, good. All right, well, we'll work as staff and committee, kind of try to go through this. We'll, and then kind of report back probably closer to, requested adoption time. And then get a revised draft out to you with those sections filled out. And we can have some further feedback. Is there anything I'm missing in terms of closing out?
We wanted to make sure that the commissioners had their input into the plan too, just any
Yep.
final thoughts that any of you had.
Yeah.
We can give you some later also, right? I just read
Would
this.
it best send them to you, Tori?
You can.
Email or
I can
text?
forward mine over to you.
Can we put a mark on the wall, or when we'd like to come back together as a group to talk about prioritization?
Yeah, so timeline here, I mean, again, we want to adopt in April. Here we are, early February, and so hope to get a draft out to you, in the next month or so with the revised stuff. So it may be one of those things where we're looking at April for another conversation, I think, realistically.
It could be the first meeting in April, and then the second meeting in April would be maybe potential approval.
Okay, that sounds like a good plan.
Aiming for that.
All right, we'll go.
Motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Y'all.
Appreciate it.
Just mentioned a grant.